For the real fans of strongman, I want this comment section to be littered with discussion.
Do you like free stuff? Do you want to begin with a chance of winning £100? Well, let me tell you, it's never been easier. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel, and when we hit 1,000 subscribers, we are going to be doing a giveaway to one lucky subscriber to win something. We don't know what yet, but something worth £100. So make sure you subscribe today so you do not miss out. On with the video.
You see, recently Mitch Hooper posted a video about the 5 things that he would change in the sport of strongman. And I originally had wrote an awful lot. Look, an awful lot. I actually wrote it. Pen and paper. I know. How crazy. Not just on an iPad, computer or whatever, as I normally do. I wrote it on paper because you know what? I actually said in this that I think Mitchell Hooper is going to do a lot of good for the sport of strongman. And I still think that's possible. However, he then posted a video talking about the strongman decathlon. So this one for me, it's got to come straight off the dome because I know enough about the sport of strongman to just talk about it. And I'm not angry. Like, genuinely, I understand the idea behind what he's saying, but I don't like the idea. Maybe you disagree, maybe you think the idea of this decathlon is great. We're going to get into that in a little bit of this video, but firstly, a couple of things I have written down. It's just the points that he made. I'm going to go through them and just talk about them. So firstly, he said that this is in the first video, the competitions, especially the big 4 competitions, need to communicate more. Now, this is something that I agree with, and he makes a lot of good points. If they communicated more, we wouldn't see these same events sort of coming up again and again. They could decide who's going to do the max lifts at their events and who's going to have more of the reps. They could be congested into, a smaller period of time so that the athletes can essentially have an on season and an off season. He makes the point that with them being sort of all 12 weeks apart, we've got Arnold's in March, Worlds in May, SMO in August, if it stays around, which of course we all hope that it does. And then we've got the Rogue Invitational in November, which sounds wonderful. However, if you're looking at a 12-week prep, you basically have the 4 weeks after the Rogue Invitational off as an off season, and then you're straight back into prep for competition. Now, if we want to see these athletes at their very best, we need to give them time to lay the foundations to become better strongmen. And another thing is that typically Arnold's and SMO are heavier, Worlds and Rogue are still heavy, but they're more the medley moving type of event. So if we put the Arnold's and SMO closer together and then the other 2 closer together, it means that the athletes could be bigger, heavier for the heavier shows and then drop their body weight for the lighter shows. The second thing that he says is it needs an athletes association. And again, this is something that I agree with. I don't think enough athletes push the sport. I think some of them are, on the express of social media, and I think that's great. I think Lucas Hatton's doing a really good job with his YouTube. Bryce Johnson's someone that I think a lot of guys need to look at. He's coming up, and I don't think it's him that's realised, I think it's his wife, as he said himself, that's realised, look, you need to capitalise on social media. You need to brand yourself because you may not be in this sport forever. But if you get yourself, let's say, 200,000 subscribers on YouTube and a good following over on Instagram or TikTok, whatever it is that you want to use, then you can go on past the sport. You look at someone like Lawrence Charlet, who was a good strongman. There's no denying that. But his career in strongman, after his actual career in strongman, I would argue is much more successful. He commentates on all of, the majority of the biggest shows. He's invited out to them. They've got a great YouTube channel with a great community. Whether you like his content or not, I don't really care. I watch his content. I enjoy his content. I think it's good. Same with the Lalas brothers. I watch the Lalas brothers. I know people will probably dislike that. Whatever. I don't care. I like strongman. As simple as that. So athletes do need an association so that they can say, we don't want to do this in this comp because it's dangerous for us and we need to think about ourselves. And he was also saying, which ties into the Athletes Association, is that sponsors could then sponsor the sport of strongman, and that money that they sponsor the sport with can get divvied up between, the top X amount of guys with more money going to the guys who bring in more, who have more followers and who work harder for them. And that's just how life works. Simple as that. You do more for a business, more for a company, you get paid better for it. Another one that he says is ranking, official ranking system. And again, I agree. I think an official ranking system is needed. I do think that, sorry, I have a really itchy nose. It's because I've been to the gym. Every time I go to the gym, I get a really itchy nose. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a dust. But anyway, official ranking system. I agree with this. And I agree with him on the idea that it is extremely difficult because you have all these different competitions. You've got the 4 majors. You've then got Giants Live. You've then got Strongman Champions League. You then got UK, Ultimate Strongman. And you've got all sorts. You've got all sorts. They're not the only ones, but they're sort of like the major ones that you would, that would come to your mind first. But you've got North America's Strongest Man, America's Strongest Man. I don't even know who they're associated with. I don't know if they're associated with official Strongman, such as the Magnus for Magnusson Classic. That's on official Strongman. And America's Strongest Man was live streamed on YouTube. So I don't know. A ranking system is difficult because you don't have the same, like, let's take football, for example. We can rank football teams because every single year you have a season, they all play each other, or most of them play each other around Europe, around the world, domestically, and you can rank them to say who's the best. In Strongman, it's not like that because you're not going to get Mitch Hooper do every single Strongman Champions League, Giants Live, and all the 4 big shows because it just doesn't work like that. But there's definitely somebody out there that can create a system where more points are awarded, I should probably say, for the bigger competitions and placings there. Next up, athlete coverage. Now, I assume this ties back to what I was saying about social media and things like that. If we have, a lot of what he's saying is that if people had a horse in the race, then they would get more into Strongman. Similar, again, to football in the fact that if you have a team that you support, you are going to support that team. Every time they play, you're going to watch them play. If you have an athlete, whether that be Mitchell Hooper, Tom Stoltman, Bryce Johnson, Paddy Haynes, Lucas Hatton, doesn't matter who it is, it can be anybody, then you're more likely to get invested, you're going to buy their merch, you're going to invest money into that person rather than just the sport alone. I mean, personally, one of the things that I like about Strongman is that you can root for somebody to win. You can root for someone to win, yet still enjoy it if they don't. That's one of the things I genuinely like about Strongman is you can watch a show without a horse in the race and it's still just as fun. Like the Magnus for Magnusson Classic, it doesn't have the biggest names in the world, but I'm still watching the show because it's enjoyable to watch. Next up, more appealing. Now, I haven't watched the whole video because I just haven't, to be honest with you. But I do understand this, more appealing for fans. He says that it's stuck between a participation sport and an entertainment sport. Essentially, it's stuck between football, again, and WWE. Which I understand, and we need to sort of decide which way we want to go with it, but I don't know if we do. Look at Giants Live. They are doing amazingly well, and it's constantly growing. Could it grow at a faster rate? Yes, I believe it could. Could it be more appealing for fans? Potentially, but what do we have to change? I don't know what we have to change. That's one of the issues. And I'll come back to that point when we talk about the decathlon. The last point that he made, the bonus point that he made, was that it should be tested. Now this, to me, is just ridiculous because if it's tested, we have Natural Strongman. Natural Strongman is a thing. It's an organisation. And it's not been around as long, but it will never be as popular as World's Strongest Man or professional pro strongman. It's never going to be as popular. As simple as that. It just won't be. And I was actually speaking to the guy that I work with about some of the athletes that are in the pro, roster that are, or at least claim to be and seem to be, natural athletes. Great for them that they're natural athletes. However, are you going to get to the end of your career and say to people, I might not have won anything, but I never took steroids. So technically, I'm better than all of them. Or do you want to get to the end of your career and say, I won World's Strongest Man, I won the Rogue Invitational, Arnold Strongman Classic, I won all of these. And when someone says, yeah, but you were on steroids, you say, yeah, but so is everyone else. They're not going to, the person that you're telling isn't going to know that maybe there's 1 in every 25 of you that isn't on steroids, it's just naturally gifted at the sport. So, to me, I think if we want to see the world's strongest man, they're going to be on steroids. And everybody knows that. If you don't know that these guys are on steroids, then good luck to you, because obviously they are. Like, it's the same in the WWE. It's the same in, like, so many sports. Because the thing with this is, even if you have a tested federation, the Lalas brothers were saying on theirs how much it costs to test for the different compounds. It's ridiculous. It costs so much money. And even if you get that, you're still going to get people that bend the rules. Like, it's just going to be strongman without the steroids, but with steroids. Like, do you know what I think needs to happen? Is they need to be more open about it. Simple as that. I can sort of see the point where they're like, oh, but sponsors will come in if we're not on steroids. I can sort of get that. I can sort of understand it. However, I also think that sponsors will come in when they see money. If they see a return on investment, they don't care if you got so much trend running through your veins that you're essentially a fucking cow or whatever it was to bulk them up. It was cows, wasn't it? Or is it? No, is it a horse thing? That's ketamine. I hope they're not taking ketamine. Yeah, Tren, that was for cows, wasn't it? So that cows get bigger, so you get more meat off them. Yeah, if you're running around like a raging bull, sponsors don't care if you're making them loads of money. If you're running around like a natural fairy and you're not making them loads of money, sponsors ain't going to be like, well, you know what? At least he's not on gear. It just doesn't fucking work like that, does it? Anyway, the decathlon. This is where, like I said, I'm going to come back to the idea of the ranking system and all of that jazz. He's basically saying that World's Strongest Man should be 10 events, maybe held over a week, I'd imagine, because if you do them over 2 days, it might be a bit mental. Where I can't remember the events that he said. I know there's a max deadlift, max log, heavy yoke, sandbag toss, probably a farmer's walk in there, I'd imagine he said. Maybe a squat for reps or something. But there was 10 events that he's like, these are the events that best test strongmen. And we could have it all standardized. So it's the exact same log, it's the exact same yoke build, and exact same deadlift bar, exact same platform. That's not strongman. The art and beauty of strongman is the fact that we like to lift rocks. Now, I'm for standardization. I am for that to a degree. Okay? I'm for it to a degree. If we can bring in standardization on, let's say, world records. World record log press has to be done on this log or this bar, at least the exact same one. And a yoke world record. If you're going to do a yoke world record, it has to be done under these conditions. Or we just don't worry about world records that are stupid. Because the problem that I have with the decathlon is he's saying that, oh, well, in this way, we would see the guys like Hathor Bjornsson be rewarded for hitting the biggest deadlift, or, you know, when Eddie Hall was competing, being rewarded for hitting the biggest log press instead of only gaining 1 point on the competition, which is true. And if you haven't watched this video, go watch it to sort of understand what I'm saying, because I'm not going to just reiterate it. I'm just going to break it down slightly. The problem that I have with it is you want to do the same 10 events every single year. And you're saying in your video, I know he's not watching this, so I don't know why I'm trying to speak to him, personally, but Mitch Hooper, is saying in his video, we can still have the other comps. So you can still have stuff like the Wheel of Pain or the Roller Coaster. That won't last. How long is that going to last? If you are a top athlete, so you're top 10, top 15, top 20 in the world, or even top 100 in the world, even top 1,000 in the world of strongman, if you're top 1,000 in the world. And you think you're doing this decathlon stuff, and you're like, you know what, my numbers, if I just increase this and this by, 5% here, 3% there, maybe 10% there, I could be right at the top. Why the fuck are you going to go and do silly events that don't play any part towards the number one title? If you are a sprinter, let's say, you're a sprinter and you're number 99th in the world rankings, okay? And you're like, you know what? Another year or two of training, I could be at the Olympics. I could potentially get a podium spot, get a medal at the Olympics. And somebody says to you, yeah, that's all well and good, but we've got a tough mudder here. This is fun. There's obstacles and stuff. You'd say, fuck off, mate. Like, I'm going to run on my track. And slowly but surely, we would see a decline in the weird and wonderful events. And he was saying that OSG's world title should be the same 10 events, and Strongman Champions League, if they wanted to do their own world title, it needs to be the same 10 events. I'm sorry, you want to make it more appealing for fans, but you want to do the same 10 events every single year? Fuck off, mate. Like, I see people in the comments saying, this is a great idea, and I understand it from the point of, wow, this would, create it into a real sport, and I get that, and I want it to be a real sport, but we have to draw the line somewhere. Standardize it as much as you can, and even if you think where it's come from to where it's to now, World's Strongest Man is now on a stage. We're not seeing truck pulls anymore at World's Strongest Man because it's on this little stage with the crowd around it. So we're not seeing truck pulls any longer because of that. Whereas if you go look, maybe, you can go look at the 70s, whatever, but the entire history of World's Strongest Man, the beauty of it was that it moved around. And I understand that things move on and you've got to change with the times, and I don't mind that at all. But the beauty of Strongman is that you don't know what events you're going to get. And some events are going to suit some guys more than others. We don't want, personally anyway, maybe I'm wrong, maybe you lot disagree with me, but I don't think we want, an Eddie Hall who's basically just going to specialise log and deadlift, because if he hits the log and deadlift max or beats it by X amount every single year, then he's going to win the decathlon as strongman, even if he's poopy at the yoke event. Like, we want the sport to have these twists and turns, to have these fun new events with standardization involved in it. Like, the two can intertwine and be, live harmonially, or whatever the fucking word is, together. Like, his first video, I'm like, you know what, this guy is trying to do a lot for the sport of strongman, and I appreciate that he's trying to do a lot for the sport of strongman. I don't think he's ever watched 1984 World's Strongest Man. I don't think he understands what strongman really is. And that's the issue. I think he sees it as just another sport. And, this sport could be better if we did X. Which I get. But that's not the sport. That's not the sport. Unfortunately, the sport is what it is. We can't change it completely. That's changing it just too much. Too much for me. Change it to have a crowd at the World's Strongest Man. Change it to have a live stream at the World's Strongest Man. Standardize what bars we use. Decide if we're going to use suits and no suits, straps. Have the competitions talk to each other so that we don't see the big jerk or a max deadlift at every single competition. Figure out a way, a better pathway, because there is a pathway to World's Strongest Man now, but figure out a better pathway to get there. Figure out a better ranking system. Have an athletes association where they get trained on social media so that they understand this is important for you to do, because your career in strongman, if you're lucky, is going to be 10 years. And even if it's 10 years, you're one out of how many guys are you going to be at the pinnacle of the sport? Are you going to be your Tom Stoltmans, your Mitch Hoopers, your Hathor Bjornsons, your Zadrunas? Like, Zadrunas isn't like the biggest on social media. That is probably the only person who is just that good, that he's that famous, especially around the strength world, because he's that good. But like, Brian Shaw's great, but his legacy a lot of his legacy is to do with the content and the things that he's done for the sport outside of the titles that he's won. If you're not going to be a major title winner, which the majority of people who we know now might not ever win a major title. Look at Lucas Hatton. I think he's great and I think he has the potential. He may never win a major title. Like that's the truth of it. He may never win one of the 4 majors. That's the reality of it. Like Evan Singleton has only just won one of the 4 majors and people have been talking about him for years. Like, there's a possibility that you never do. So that I can understand. Get that there. I like the idea of the sponsorship. Sponsor the sport of strongman. Here, strongman, we're going to give you £1 million. The top guy, you can have 200,000, 180 or 150, whatever. You understand. I'm not going to do all the fucking maths for you here. Change the sport to improve the sport. Don't change the sport completely. And that's all I have to say. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. I'll see you next time.